welcome back to another LeaderCast leadership interview for Next Step Leadership. As you can see, we have a lot going on. This is a pretty exciting moment to have this opportunity. Give you guys a little bit of background. Who we're interviewing today is Mr. Chris Sargent. He and I, let's go back to what happened with Leslie in our last interview, the power of social media. Again, Chris and I actually played football together way back when. I'm not going to give you guys a date. We don't want to get into, being old dogs and new tricks and whatnots. But Chris has had one heck of a journey, and he's willing to share his insight. Most recently, on top of everything else, Chris has spent time, I think it was just last week, doing a presentation, statewide presentation to principals in New York State about the long-term and necessary needs of sleep. And he did a magnificent job. I'm still hearing about it all the way in North Carolina about what he's done. Chris is also the head strength and conditioning coach for Potsdam up in the upstate New York area. It's about 10 minutes north of Canton, New York. And he's also a business owner and the owner of 3S Training, and he's going to share with us his insight and move through some topics today. As usual, I do a broad question where nobody knows who is going to be getting interviewed, and from there we're growing the following. Brad had 300 views, Leslie had 220 so far. And people are starting to ask good questions. And I think we got some here that'll make you think, Chris. I'm also going to call him Sarge because that's what I've called him probably for some of those years.
Yep.
So you guys will hear me call him Chris, and it'll get kind of personal and call him Sarge. Sneak peek also, Chris has done a leadership piece and will be featured in Lessons in Leadership Volume 2 when it comes out. We're looking at an August or September release date. So sneak peek, Chris is going to be featured in that work, and I'm really excited to have you here today. How are you, sir? Where are you coming to us live from? I think I see, what do you got back there? Oh.
That is the St. Lawrence River, and that is Canada on the other side of that St. Lawrence River.
Hi, neighbors.
Yeah.
Shout out to Canada back there.
Yeah. So maybe Steph Trendle is up there somewhere.
That's right. Shout out to Trendle. We miss you, buddy.
Yeah.
I love it. So we're going to get right into it. Chris, are you good with that, or do you need a couple of minutes?
Absolutely.
You're good?
Go.
All right. So tell us, who is Chris Sargent?
I would like to be able to give you an idea in one sentence, but I'm still trying to figure it out. Like they say the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. Well, I tell you what, it's not by my meaning or purposely seeking out who I am, but like every day I kind of find out a little bit more. Like I'm a weird mix of, I try to be intelligent. I try to surround myself with intelligent doctors like yourself, and as such. And at the same time, like I try to see things from all different perspectives, and I think that allows me to kind of, if you show me a UFC pay-per-view, I will watch that UFC pay-per-view. If you show me a movie on Lassie, I will probably be in tears at the end of that thing. So I don't know who I am, so I'm still looking for it, trying to figure out who I am. But I think if I'm not learning, then I'm kind of staying stagnant, and that's one thing that I have a tough time doing. So
still learning, and from just hearing that, it's just ever transparent. This is who I am. These are my emotions, and
yeah,
I'm taking it in every day. I love that. That's really cool and free flowing. Thank you for that.
Yep.
What are your current goals? So if you're ever defining yourself, right? So tell me about what are your current goals? What do you got working?
What I have found is that I have a lot of different avenues that I tend to go down. And some of them just organically happen. And some of them I have been going down for some while. And what I mean by that is, like, several years ago, I started 3S training with the idea that I was going to train sport-specific athletes. So if you were a football player and specifically a lineman, I would teach you how to train specifically for, a lineman activity. Same thing with basketball, stuff like that. That was going pretty darn well. I continued to kind of build up clients, and then one of them ended up being Potsdam State basketball. And 2 years later, I found that same coach calling me up and saying, "Hey, do you have any desire in being the strength and conditioning coach?" So now I'm over at Potsdam State. So I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Potsdam State. I really want to help to get those athletic programs on the right path. I think that Maxey Hall is a mecca of Northern New York that I feel as though every athlete should be going to. But business-wise, with 3S training, like, I started to look at how to train athletes, and one of the things I found was like, none of what I do matters if my athletes don't sleep. And so because of that, I started to get into the power of sleep, and because of that, I was asked to speak at an opening orientation with all the faculty members at this one district. Well, the next thing you know, nobody can remember Sarge, but everybody was like, "Hey, the sleep guy." The sleep guy was pretty. What does the sleep guy think? Yes. The next thing I know, like, I'm making business cards as the sleep guy. So like I say, if I'm not doing several things at one time, I mean, we just bought a chess set.
Sure.
And I'm not very good, but I found out. I did figure out, yes, who I was. I did figure out that I'm not very good at art. So
me neither.
Right? I'm always trying to kind of push myself in different ways. If I get stagnant, I get bored, and when I'm bored, it's not enjoyable for me. So
you gotta stay toward those goals and toward that movement. Man, those are some pretty big goals. I mean, putting Potsdam State on the map that way would be amazing. All the athletes who are going to watch this and colleagues of Sarge, good luck, and you guys did something right, because he does know what he's talking about. I'll tell you that.
Thank you, sir.
Now, how did you get started in this current role? Like, what led you to? So it sounded like you planted some seeds, you did some successful things with basketball, but how did you start this journey? For me, I'll just give you a little background. Like, I always wanted to be a coach. Like, the only thing I ever wanted to do is be a coach. The most influential people in my life were my coaches. So, when I did my undergrad at St. Lawrence, there was a coaching certificate. I mean, that was the first thing that caught my eye as an add-on to my degree. So, like, what led you down the path to where you are today as the head strength and conditioning coach and as the business owner piece?
Great question, and I think it's very similar answers. I would hear, as my dad and my mother were both teachers. And my dad and my uncle are both amazing coaches. I would hear from people that were older than me my entire childhood, your dad was this, your uncle was this. And it was always like, they helped me do this. And your dad is amazing as a coach and stuff like that. And because of that, I was thinking to myself, like, I love sports. I love trying to get people to motivated and, to succeed. I was like, this is what I want to do. So I got into teaching. I was teaching for 10 years. I was a head football coach out in Tucson, Arizona, a little school called Walden Grove. Shout out to all my Walden Grove folks. And there's a level there. It's interesting that you can reach high school kids on a very, very deep level. But my issue is that I wanted to deal with only the people that wanted what I wanted. Like, if you get a football team of 50 guys, you're going to get 50 people that are going to say that they want to win. 10 of them are going to actually do what is necessary, 10 or 20 if you're lucky. And then you're going to get 5, if you're lucky, of the hardcore guys that are willing to do everything. And so
like the top 3 to 5%.
Yes.
Okay.
Like those people that like, if they didn't direct their ambition in a certain way, you'd be like, that person's a little off kilter, like they're a little psycho, like
they're drinking motor oil or something. Yeah.
yes, like
sure.
So I started to deal with like triathletes and some of these folks that are doing like Ironman races, and it's like, yeah, if they're a little, you got to be a little crazy to do some of that stuff. So I started out in teaching. Then I decided I wanted to get that top 5%. Started to build my own business. Thank goodness that I listened to my wife. She convinced me to get my master's in exercise science. And she's like, you're going to have to continue to prove yourself to all these people that don't know how good you are until you get a degree that says that you're qualified to do this. So I said, yeah, you're right, reluctantly. And then COVID
I will say this, though. I being in education myself, the one thing I will say is, what would the difference be if within that 3 to 4 years, if you didn't go to school?
Oh, I mean,
just 3 to 4 years would have passed.
Yes, absolutely.
You would have worked hard anyway. You would have been working hard, but just the 3 to 4 years would have passed, and you wouldn't have the degree right now.
100%.
So all you people out there watching Next Step Leadership right now and watching this, if you are asking yourself like Sarge did, and I did it too, I procrastinated going back for my doctorate. There's a moment of, okay, all right, I got, you know what? Because the only thing that will change is that amount of time. That amount of time will change, but now you're 3 or 4 years ahead of where you were before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's two ways to look at that too. Like my wife at the beginning was like, "Why did you not go to college for this?" It's so easy now, 2020.
Well, you don't know how to find yourself either.
Yeah, like at 20 years old, I mean, I was, very immature and just, not the person that I am today. Not even, and I'm glad. But
right.
It took that recalibration and my wife to say that kind of like, I started the program and 2 months later, COVID hit. Next thing you know, everything was shut down. And thank goodness that I was going to get my master's. And then the day after I graduated, Jim Bechtel calls from Potsdam State. Hey, what do you think about this strength and conditioning job? And then 2 days after that, Chris V, principal at Cuba Rushford, calls up and, hey, what do you think about doing a sleep presentation? It's like now that I had that degree, those letters at the end of my name on a piece of paper, now people were like, okay, he's for real, I guess. Let's see.
I always called the certificate, the diploma, the license, or the credential a gate key for some people. I over time, I've met a lot of people that have 15 to 20 years of really good experience. They just don't have the gate key or the credential piece or the paper piece that goes along with it. So like
Absolutely.
What you're describing is, that opportunity. And what I'll ask this question as a follow-up. Did you go through a lot of the material in your master's and go, oh, so that's what that's called? But you didn't know that was the words or the definition, but you were doing it already.
There absolutely is a vernacular to it. And I think that one of the things that was interesting is that, like I said, my wife's an RN. So a lot of times, I was listening to people that were next level on these podcasts because we're going on a long trip or something. Next thing I know, like Dr. Peter Attia or Dr. Rhonda Patrick is in the background. And I'm like, what did she just say? I have no idea. And then my wife's schooling me. So like the next thing I know, but my sleep presentation from the day that I graduated, before the day I graduated, and after the day I graduated, it's all still there. But like you said, that gate key, that was the difference. That was the difference between me getting those phone calls, opening up those doors, and sitting on the sideline being like, hey guys, pick me, I'm pretty good. That was the difference.
Now transitioning from that, you said that the other part of that was going through the definition and now having it. So that leads me to the next question from the people that want to know, like, how do you go, or how do you separate the two worlds, right? How do you go from 3S training business owner and have it separate from head strength and conditioning coach at Potsdam State? Now, how do you juggle or separate the two worlds, or how do you work through that?
Great question. I think it's interesting because one feeds the other. when I'm teaching a strength and conditioning course at Potsdam State, when I'm working with my athletes and everything at Potsdam State, that's basically practice all day long. And then when I get more athletes that are coming and seeking me out, that's just more practice. And you know, a lot of people are like, well, when's your game time? Well, it's when the athletes go out and they have their games. Right. You know what I mean? But like all of this is me refining, getting better at all times. And so then I can pass that on to the athletes. Like, you know, they may not have, you know, we get guys that'll come in and want to bench, you know, 3 times a week. And you got to explain to them like, well, this is what overtraining is. You know, like this is why you got to take a step back. This is what it does to your hormone levels. This is what it does to the repair of the muscles, stuff like that. So I think one feeds the other. I think what's interesting now is that I kind of have the ability to pick and choose the athletes that I get through 3S training. There are a lot of people that say that they are willing to do the things, and for a month they may be able to. It's the athlete that's willing and able to do it for 6, 9, 12 months and then see, okay, now this, I can really see these results, because, you know, training is one of those things where you don't just, hey, I trained today, I should be off tomorrow.
You got to have consistency.
Right. Like it's that daily
9 months. Yeah. All of a sudden you see the difference in your physical performance, your body. It's not just, it's not like a fad diet. Let's lose 10 pounds in 30 days. Right. It doesn't work that way when it comes to your social and emotional wealth. I get behind that. That's definitely, I can see how you work through those two worlds. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll be honest, like I still pinch myself in the morning, like they're going to pay me for this.
I get it. I mean?
Like, yeah, I'm going to go lift weights today for 4 hours and you're going to pay me. Like, excuse me? Like, okay, like, yeah, sure, this will be awesome. You know, so, you know, I'm very lucky. I'm very grateful that I did go back to school and get that degree. So,
now, what would you say, like, is the connection of health and wellness? So we kind of talked about consistency. So my health and my wellness, and, you know, how does that translate for you as student athletes? For people that are, like, you know, the people that look at Next Step Leadership, you know, what is the connection between health and wellness and your overall performance in the workplace?
John Rattay just wrote an amazing book called Spark, and he did this experiment. I believe it was in the state of Illinois, in which he tracked heartbeats of high school kids and high school students. And what he found was that if you take myself, for instance, in pretty decent shape and everything, you see me shooting baskets during gym class, PE class. Okay, Chris is working. Chris is doing something. But then you look at the female that is walking the track, and you're like, she's just walking the track. You know, like, what is she doing? But at the end of the day, what they started doing was taking heart monitors, and they started tracking the actual beats per minute of each student. And what they found was that because I was in shape, I may only be at 80 beats per minute. So I look like I'm playing basketball and going hard, but I'm not doing anything. Meanwhile, the female that maybe she isn't, you know, working out regularly, but now she's walking the track. If her heart rate is elevated at 120, now all of a sudden she's the one that's working. What they found along with that is there was a direct correlation between their grades and their grades in the other classes throughout the day, math, bio, whatever it may be. And then the amount of, you know, stress that they were putting on their body in the morning. And the takeaway there is, and it's been shown many times, is that this, you know, your body is a vehicle, right? And for your brain to perform optimally, then you've got to rev the engine, and the engine is the heart. That is cardiovascular. That is working out. That is all those things. So I am all about optimal human performance. And I think that transcends so many different categories, that I think that without working out, without the health and wellness components, you will never cognitively be at your optimal level until you address all facets of your life. So,
you know, for me, so this one's almost personal. I got fairly big, right? I was
Yep.
close to the 600-pound club at one time. And it was, depression, loss, grief, working. I was working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in a different role in a different world. And in the motivation to do any of it was gone. And so one of the questions from our followers for Next Step Leadership was, how do you inspire people who have lost their motivation? And I think that ties right into the other part of what you're saying is it's like you work on your emotional and physical health, and it will change that routine, not only for people in school, but their work performance. But when we look at that, how do you get people to be inspired who just, they have no want to, I don't want to, or they've lost that will to do it. I just want to get my cup of coffee and be left alone. Like, how do you get them, their engines back up and running?
I think one of the biggest, the key ideas that I try to promote is, start at the end with regards to your objective. What is your objective? And is your objective to lose 10 pounds? Is it to feel better? Is it to perform better? Like, what is your objective? And then by doing that, we can work backwards. And for somebody that has been in that hole, that is suffering a little bit to get out of that said hole,
yeah.
then I think what you can do by working backwards is you set small attainable goals. And by setting small attainable goals, now all of a sudden, when you start to knock down those goals, my goal today was just to go to the gym. They did a study where the goal was go to the gym for 5 minutes, because you hear about so many people that go to the gym and then they never get out of the car.
That was me. I would get to the gym. I would go through the morning routine, Chris. I'd get dressed. I would get there. I would look at the door, and I would put my car in reverse. And I'd go home. Or
right.
What slowly started to happen is you know what? Just gonna ride the stationary bike for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And that was it. That was all I could do for that day. Yep. That's amazing advice. So if you're out there and you're thinking about finding your motivation or finding your mojo again, Chris's partial advice is start small.
Yep, absolutely.
Get a couple of small wins.
When they found people were just going to the gym and not even, like, they practiced with a bunch of people that they found that were going to the gym and then like leaving, and they said, okay, all I want you to do is go to the gym for 5 minutes and don't get out of your car. Then the next step was go to the gym, go into the gym for 5 minutes. You can't do anything in 5 minutes in the gym.
Just walk around, find the bathroom, the cold
right.
water machine, cold water fountain,
But if you can knock down those goals,
yeah,
and sooner or later, I mean, you're gonna be like, I'm here. Like, let's get a half hour in. Let's get 45 minutes in, and small attainable goals. I think that's the way to get people motivated and getting used to winning at your own personal experience.
Now, can you notice I give up or I hate the word quitting, but can you notice a quitting mentality before it even happens?
Yes.
Have you seen enough athletes or personalities to
even like 41 years old, grew up around sports my entire life. There are some teams out there that find ways to win when they should never win. There are also teams out there that find ways to lose when they should never lose. And that whole idea of like, oh, here we go again. Like here it comes. This is where it all falls apart. Like,
yeah.
That is a learned behavior, and there's absolutely no doubt. You obviously know that I'm a big fan of like mixed martial arts, and you can find when people are giving up, when they start to give their back and they're like, listen, our easy out here is for you to give me a rear naked choke and I'll tap and then we'll all go home. And it's like,
yeah,
you can see that. You can see when it's coming. So I mean, that's the big thing here is like, yeah, getting away from that and understanding.
Yeah,
You know.
changing their mindset or helping
Yes.
work through it. All right, this moment we're going to get from you because it might be something fun. I'm not sure. This was also a follower question. What is one strength exercise someone could do while on a work call that will not have them completely out of breath if they need to come off mute all of a sudden?
Yep.
I thought it was a hilarious question, but I was like, we see all these different commercials, like the guy with the green screen and he's going skiing or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was actually, I thought about it and I was like, this would be a fun, challenging question for you. Is like, so what is something that someone could do, but then also be able to press that mute button and come back and talk without.
Right. I like this question. Okay, so I think all of human movement comes down to functional patterns. And therefore, when you find functional patterns, that is oftentimes when we find the muscle memory. And muscle memory is your muscles have no memory. What you're actually seeing is when you have muscle memory, you are seeing higher neural density. And what I mean by that is you have about 1 billion neurons in your brain and you have 1 billion neurons in the rest of your body. And what happens is, let's say, for instance, I'm throwing a baseball or a football. Every time I throw that baseball or football, that neuron, the dendrites and the terminal branches, they all start to grow. The number of neurons does not change, but they become more and more entangled. And because they continue to grow, that neural pathway can become much quicker, and there are much more synapses where that motor movement can happen. And therefore, that is why when I throw a ball with my right hand, it looks a heck of a lot better than when I throw it with my left hand, looking like Squints Palledorous, right? So, or Smalls from the Sandlot, not Squints. No offense, Squints.
Yeah.
Right? But like, so how does that relate to a movement pattern in which somebody could do on a conference call? Okay, squats. One of the biggest factors determining longevity and how long people live is their amount of their leg strength and their balance. And I think that a lot of that has to do with developing that neural pathway of sitting down into the deep squat and just getting into that hip mobility and stuff like that. So I think personally, if you can just do a 10-second squat, just go down 1 inch. Am I good? Where's the balance? Where's the equilibrium of my body?
Do you know your body? Do you know your legs? Do you know your quads? Okay.
Can you see it in your mind's eye, right? Like, can you see where your hips are? Can you see where your butt is? What does your back look like? You don't have eyes back there, but can you think about, like, okay, where is it? And if you do,
for those of you watching this on your phone, I hope you're doing a squat, right?
Right. So, like, if you're going down 1-2 inches at a time, I think that you are doing yourself a favor because you are building muscle memory. You are thinking about how your body moves. You're thinking about your body positioning. And overall, you're preventing a fall that may lead to a serious injury later on in life. And so that's, if I was going to do one, there it is.
There you heard it, people. That was free out of the goodness of Chris's heart. But if you listen to the first 1 or 2 minutes of that response, you could hear his professionalism, his knowledge base, everything that comes with him being your strength and conditioning coach, as well as what he would bring to the table at 3S training if you came knocking on his door over there at the St. Lawrence River and said, "Hey, Mick, yeah. let's train Mick," right? So thank you. I
gotta hire you.
That means a lot. I appreciate it. But I could see you just going going back to who is Chris Sargent, seeing you that happy and excited, giving that answer. That's who you are right now, and it's awesome. I'm glad that everyone got to see some of that magic right now. So
I'm glad that you're selling me as much. Like, you're a better salesman than I am.
So if you could just bring that logo of mine up. And I'm just. So what is Chris Sargent reading right now? Like, what's on the nightstand, or what's on the Kindle, or what's wifey got you looking at from the world of knowledge base? What are you reading right now?
I've got 2 books right now. Next Step Leadership. I just finished the 3rd chapter on the Romans, Roman 300. The Greeks, isn't it? It's actually the Greeks. But I'm reading that, and then I also am reading The Chosen Few, which is about some paratroopers in Afghanistan. Getting the basis right now. I'm on like chapter 3, about 50 pages in. Seems very interesting.
Little known fact, you're also a big fan of history, right? A history guy, like you love history. Yeah.
Sports were created so that we didn't war with each other. That's what it all came from, right?
Lacrosse is a perfect example. Yeah.
Boom, the Iroquois, amazing, right?
They played till the death.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So like how everything is there's so much to be learned through war, and how our interactions in wartime and in war ravaged places, and how people communicate and create team and leadership, and all those things that we strive to do in the educational field. I just feel like there's so much to be learned there that can help and be brought back into the educational field. Like, I read Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and it was only 7 chapters, but that man had a pulse, had a finger on the pulse.
I'm doing my homework now. I got Tribe, and I think the other one was called Scale. Was that the other one earlier?
The Chosen Few.
Chosen Few. Okay. Yeah, I've got all this awesome homework. I'm like, oh, I got to check that bad boy out.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So.
All right. So going with that, though, I said it in a way that was like, little known fact. You're also a history guy, but it does lead me down the other path of, what would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about you? Like, and how do you work through it? Oh, look at that grin.
So, right. Okay, so I'm a person, I've got opinions. And sometimes they're correct and sometimes they're not. But I think because I'm willing to do things that other people think are crazy. And I understand what I do is not for everybody. Like, when I'm doing a workout with tape over my mouth because I'm trying to increase red blood cell counts, that's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to take a client day one and, hey, let's put a piece of tape over your mouth. You can breathe through your nose.
I think you're a little Silence of the Lamb, Buffalo Billish,
Right. Right. Like
duct tape. What's this guy? I'm going home.
Yeah. And so because I'm doing stuff like that, and I'm doing, kettlebell carries underwater and stuff like that, people sometimes look at me like, okay, you're crazy. But like, if you go back to the reasoning of why I'm attacking problems the way that I am, if you ask me, I would like to think that I'm going to have an answer as to why I feel or think the way I think. And because I have learned as a coach, it is not simply enough nowadays to tell your athletes, your students, as a teacher even, this is what we're doing. Why? Because this is the way we've always done it. Right? That just does not work anymore. And so for me, because I think through not everything, the most of the things that I care about, and because I have an opinion on it, sometimes I think that people think I'm a little bit crazy and kind of shoo me off. And I'd like to think the year or two later, when they revisit the topic and they look back at what I said, I would like to think that they're like, maybe Sarge wasn't crazy. But I don't know if that happens. You know what I mean? Like, I think some people see through that as to the reasoning and why. I think other people, at times, it's hard for them to see past the crazy to understand the why.
I understand. I think that the other part of that, a good friend of mine once said, to be things that not many people are, you have to do things that not many people will do. And the other side of that is you have to ask questions that people aren't thinking about to get answers that are going to make sense for the way you serve. You serve different athletes, and
Absolutely.
you are in charge of the safety and well-being of how many student athletes right now, and then everybody who comes to your home to train. I mean, it's a big deal. So that's a great way to look at things that people might say. So you heard it first. If you're coming to see Sarge, or Sarge is coming over to do something, he's asking questions. I hope we've proved to you that he does have theoretical reasoning behind these good questions.
True that. Yeah. And the thing is too is like it used to be like from a coaching or a teaching perspective where why are you questioning what we're doing? Mm-hmm. Right? Like how dare you almost like, but now it's like, it's a compliment. I feel like
I think there's a wild story of, hey, how come we put the turkey neck in the pan? We don't make the stuffing with it. I don't know. We've just always done it. And it turns out they asked the great grandmother, and the grandmother goes, that's because we had to cut the neck off and put it in because the pan was too small.
Yeah.
Nobody had ever questioned why or wondered. They just, I don't know. I always put the turkey neck in. Right. It's the same idea. I don't know. We've always done just let's go back. I'll be guilty. We only did bench, squat, clean. What happens to an athlete that only does bench, squat, clean? They become very top heavy and get shoulder and different pains or injuries after 4 or 5 years of just that. Well, today they would go, how come we're only doing back today? Or how come we're only doing hamstrings? Because over 20 some odd years of experience, I can tell you, you can't just work your quads today.
Right. Yeah. If you want to be quite, like if you create those imbalances, the injuries are sure to follow.
They will be here. Yeah. Yep. Now, what would you say was your path to leadership? Because for me, this is what you talk about, your passion, right? My passion, I'm very much, if you check out the YouTube channel for Next Step Leadership, what is Next Step Leadership? An opportunity to look at leaders or look at the idea of leadership. Tell us about your path to leadership and your views on leadership a little bit.
I think that my path was, as a kid, I think because I was decent at some sports, I would often get the comment, Chris, you're a leader, whether or not you want to be or not. You can either lead these guys the right way or the wrong way. And for the longest time, it was like, don't. Like whatever, dude.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
Yeah. But then, like, as you get older, like, and then you start to sit back and realize, like, oh, if you look at what my dad's doing, you look at what my uncle's doing, and people respond well to them, And I had one friend say when I first opened up 3S training, somebody asked, like, well, what is it that you're doing? And I said, we're taking these athletes, we're trying to make them better, and we're going to work with the folks that are the alphas that really want to get better. And this guy who was not an athlete at all, but knew my family, just said, oh, so you're going to bottle up the Sargent attitude with regards to sports, and then you're going to sell it. And it's like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like, why didn't I think of that? But it's like, I enjoyed watching those I thought were fantastic coaches and leaders. Dave Murray at Alfred University, who's now over at Hamilton University. He's another one that I thought was just phenomenal. Bill Myrna, as a basketball coach, like, you run across some of those people. Tim Valley, I didn't understand the idea that that the alpha wolf has to look over everybody in the pack, and that the one that's not eating, the alpha is responsible for bringing that one that's not eating along and getting everybody a piece of the food, right? Tim Valley is one of the guys that said to me, like, Chris, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about that. We're going to win games. Everybody's got to touch the ball. It's like, and it's like, you look back at those lessons.
There it is.
Yeah. You look back at those lessons and it's like, man, if I can come close to what some of those guys have done.
Yeah.
I'll call it.
Forget more about leading and leadership than what we are trying to attain. I completely understand.
Yeah.
And it's so wild how they make it look so effortless.
Yes.
and I aspire to that. That's why I'm so hungry for those types of leadership answers. So I appreciate that, man. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Tell us about a time that you failed as a leader, or didn't have the success you wished for.
Big one. So I mean, okay. So I'm an extrovert. This is where my wife is an introvert. I'm an extrovert. This is where she would say, Chris, you share too much information. But I'm kind of an open book, and that's how I roll. I think that you fail when you well, let me start that again. You fail when you refuse to course correct. And I can look at a situation in my past where, as a teacher, as a coach, I ended up going out one night foolishly at 30 years old and getting a DWI. Is that a failure? Sure as hell not a success. But then again, like when I look at that and I say you haven't had a drink of alcohol in 10 plus years. Now I think like that failure has led to a success. And I think that the only failures, if you're not failing, then you're not trying. If every fight that you get in, you win, you're fighting the wrong people. Like if you're always winning at everything, then you aren't pushing yourself. If I didn't have that course correction where I looked at myself in the mirror and said, like, is this helping you as a professional? Is this helping you with your marriage? Is this helping you on any personal level? What is this doing for you? And the answer kept coming back to me, for me. And this is everybody. It's person specific. I have if people want to drink, that's up to them.
Sure.
But for me, it was not helping me, and I wasn't mature enough to control it. So I just said, what, I'm done with it. And since then, I think that failure has turned into one of my successes. So.
Oh man, thank you for sharing. There might be a lot of people out here that listen to this that you just motivated to make some course corrections of their own. And or what I like to is about your answer is you have to be willing to take responsibility for your own mistakes or pieces that move you to ask those questions and look at yourself in the mirror that way. So I appreciate such a sincere answer. And again, for those of you watching, he's the real deal, and he wears his emotions, and he's transparent, and that's what's he's going to make you as an athlete understand that, and he's not going to sugarcoat what you need to be doing to get successful or the best versions of yourself. So thank you for that. It has come. We are at the last question of the interview today, Sarge. And it's a broad one, and it's just for you. What thoughts or ideas do you want to leave Lessons in Leadership LeaderCast watchers today? And just a shameless plug, as you're thinking about that, check Sarge out. 3S Trainings on Facebook, 3S Trainings on Instagram. And he might, if you do want to speak with him, he will give me a contact for you, and I'll put it in the comments section of YouTube and on the Next Step Leadership website. So if you do want to get in touch with Chris or awesome. Have some conversations about who you are and how you're growing, he'd probably at least you'll know where you stand. But what thoughts or ideas do you want to leave the people who spent time with us today?
It's almost you got the answer right behind you in the background there. Thank you for putting that up and everything. But when I think about like what I built this 3S training around, it's a two-way street, right? Like I'm responsible for half of this, and you're responsible as the athlete. But this is not athletics. It's basically just life in general. The reason why we have the wolf as the logo is because I read Wolf Nation, and it was amazing to me. And because of that, I came up with this idea, and that was that as a pack of wolves makes a kill, whatever that carcass may be, none of the wolves eat until the alpha eats. So the alpha comes over and has any portion of that kill of the elk or whatever it may be, has every single portion at its fingertips. It's a buffet. And the alpha will always go after the same piece of meat, the liver. That is because the liver is the most nutrient-dense portion of that kill. If you eat that liver, you're going to stay the alpha. Now, the thing is, it's my responsibility on this two-way street to bring you the liver. I've got to be willing to come up with the greatest workout plan that just for this 45 minutes to an hour is going to get you the most nutrient dense portion. At the same time, and this is where your listeners come in, the other half of that is you've got to do alpha you. You may not be the alpha on your team. You may not even regard yourself as an alpha, but if there is a pack of wolves living inside you, you have to listen to the alpha. And you just got to say, yo, I'm here to eat today. Like, I'm going to do the best that I can possibly do today in the next several, whatever it may be. If it's an hour, if it's a half a day, if it's a day, whatever it may be. But I'm going to do alpha me today. They're going to get the alpha of Angelo. They're going to get the alpha of Sarge. Like that's what, if I was going to leave people with one message is don't be afraid to let out your alpha and be the best version of yourself. Whatever it may be. It may be education. It might be playing the trumpet. I don't know, but
whatever it may be. And even in going back to the other question, set your goals.
Yep.
That maybe just getting up that day and brushing your teeth is the best version of yourself for that day. Absolutely. But you can attain so much more. That's awesome. So you do alpha you and be the best version of yourselves. I love that. Thank you. And again, I will get Sarge's contact information for you guys and at least have it available. I want to just thank everybody for coming and tuning in again. And Sarge, thank you so much for your time. And shameless plug, if we ever want to do a tandem event of a sleep conversation and leadership conversation, I am totally into that guest speaking engagement. And we could totally rock a house. Your energy is awesome, and I think that we could do something cool. So shameless plug, if anyone's out there listening, these two guys would be happy to come in and talk about leadership and personal growth and development.
Yep, absolutely. I'm in. So, well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. I mean, I think it's awesome that you wrote a book. I mean, listen, you put yourself out there, right? Like, I mean, when you write a book,
I had anxiety all of the month of April with the book release in May. So it's going back to honoring your transparency. For me, just learning how to be transparent and say, hey, these were my thoughts.
Yep.
I hope they can help just one person. Just one. If just one person reads it and says, you know what, lesson 4 was outstanding, and it made me, the next step at the end of that lesson left me down this rabbit hole of who I am or what I need to do as I'm working. That's all I could hope for. Just one. And I'm humble and thankful that you're already on lesson 3 and checking it out, man. So thank you.
Absolutely, no doubt.